in the very beginning of the Mishnah, Tractate Yomim Mishnah, the first Mishnah in Perek Chi'i, chapter 9, we begin with the concept of Reshut HaYachid, a private domain, but the issue of carrying in a different roof. If you look at this picture, 312 in the book Borat Adaf, you see that this is an basically attached building, and somehow there is need for people to carry from one roof to another. Now, the question is, sometimes you think, since it's all considering a private domain, what is the issue? But we explain many times that the rabbis institute, which we call Eruvei Chatzerot, carrying between different chatzers like a courtyard, and the question is, if a person needs to carry from one roof to another roof, is that considering as one domain of private domain, since they are all belong to individual, or we say that it's a separate people, separate individual, and they need to combine in advance all their domains, which we call, for our understanding, Eruvei Chatzerot, even it's not Chatzer meaning courtyard, and here we're speaking about roof. So the Mishnah said, Kol gagot ha'ir reshut achat, ובלבד שלא יהיה גג גבוה 10 או נמוך 10 דברי רבי מאיר. They said all the roofs of the city are considering one domain, so it means that you're allowed to carry from one roof to another roof. Now you think, does that mean even they do not have a roof? So if you follow Rabbi Meir, the answer is yes. Rabbi Meir hold that it's all considering one domain, and therefore it's basically something we're going to study and later in Tzadik Aleph, page 91, that the Rabbi Meir did not differentiate between roofs and any type of courtyards. It's all by him the same domain. It's all Reshut Achat. The only exception Rabbi Meir hold is if you have a 10 handbreadth. So he said if here it's less than 10 handbreadth, then it's fine. It's like connected. The minute it pass the border of halacha of 10 handbreadth, forget it. Then you need to have a Eruvei Chatzerot between one roof to another roof. והחכמים אומרים כל אחד ואחד רשות בפני עצמו. Simple. The sages said no. Yes, sometimes you have a residential buildings that belong to the same company or the same individual. But as far as treating the resident of those domains, we're treating them in people who are living in separate domain. Each of them is considering a separate domain. So he said, for example, if you have a taxes, so even one company owns all these buildings, as far as the city is concerned, they charge them taxes individually, correct, for every building. The sages said, the same way as the building, it's a separate domain, the roof is a separate domain. So he said, if they do not make Eruvei Chatzerot, which means sharing a courtyard, all the residents of the buildings, one cannot carry from one roof to another roof. In other words, when you are doing Eruvei Chatzerot, you're not including just the Chatzer, the courtyard, you're basically including by that the entire building. So if there's no Eruvei Chatzerot, you cannot have carrying on the roof. Third opinion, רבי שמעון אומר, אחד גגות, ואחד חצרות, ואחד קרפיפות, רשות אחת הן. He said there's no difference between roof, courtyards, and enclosures. They're all considering one domain, which means that if it's a vessel inside them, so you can carry from one to another even without a roof, even from the courtyard for many to another courtyard of many. However, it's not considering one domain לכלים ששבתו בתוכן ולא לכלים ששבתו בתוך הבית. That's apply only to vessels that were inside the house when Shabbat began, but not to a vessel inside the house, which means that if it was at the beginning of Shabbat inside the house and he took them out in the courtyard, so he cannot carry from one courtyard to another if they don't make Eiruvei Chatzerot together. So the key point by Rabbi Shimon, Rashi said, is that in order to allow vessels in particular to carry from one domain to another, that's the whole purpose of Eiruvei Chatzerot. So meaning that if you have vessels inside the house when the Shabbat started, it's considering it's like they are there for the entire Shabbat, and you cannot take it to other places when you are walking out to the yard. The Shulchan Aruch Harav or Achaim Shin Ayin Bet 372 said clearly, he said that this is what we derive from this Gemara, because it's a different domain. So he said that the key point again is the vessels, not to take out vessels that was not set up in the domain of Eiruvei Chatzerot. Now the Gemara elaborate first and foremost on Rabbi Meir. So Yativ Abaye Baravin Rabbi Chanina Baravin ויתיב אביי גבאי ויתווי וכאמרי. So all these rabbis get together and they challenge the point in the Mishnah as follows. Bishlama Rabbanan, if we understand the word of the sages in the Mishnah, that each roof has a separate domain, so we understand Savrei כשם שדיורין חלוקין למטה, כך דיורין חלוקין למעלה. So they hold the same as the neighbors. They have a different domain in their yards, which means part of the idea of making Eiruvei Chatzerot is understanding that each courtyard has a separate entity by halacha, and therefore the neighbors need to have a joint courtyard in order to use it. So he said the same apply here, if it's a roof of a building, it's also a separate domain, and one cannot carry from one to another. That's Rabbeinu Hananel explanations. Ela Rabbi Meir Mai Kasava. When Rabbi Meir said that all the roofs are considering as one, what did he have in his mind? I Kasava כשם שדיורין חלוקין למטה, כך דיורין חלוקין למעלה, if he maintains that just as residents of they are divided into separate domain in the foundation, in below, in the courtyard, so in his opinion is the same apply to one domain, which is all the roofs. ואי כסבר אין חלוקין, if he says that the residents are not divided when it's come to the roof, וכל למעלה מ10 רשות אחת היא, that air space that exceeded more than 10 handbreadth, it's considering as a separate domain. It's not attached to the domain below. Therefore, even the residents are divided below, they are not divided at the top, which means that those roofs of this building that they're higher than 10 handbreadth, אפילו גג גבוה 10 ונמוך 10 נמי. So even if a roof is 10 handbreadth high and 10 handbreadth lower than the adjacent roof, so it's the same idea that is permitted to carry from one roof to another. So why Rabbi Meir said that in that circumstance it's not considering as one domain? So Abaye responds and he said, Amarlu Abaye, Lo shmi'alu hada amar Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi. He said, don't you heard what Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi said? אומר היה רבי מאיר, כל מקום שאתה מוצא שתי רשויות, Rabbi Meir used to say, any place, any two different situations, that one is higher than the other with the 10 handbreadth, והן רשות אחת, which means that they are both, as far as halachic category, it's considering as a private domain, כגון עמוד ברשות היחיד. If you have like a big pillar standing in a private domain, and it's have that courtyard, a partition surrounded, גבוה 10 ורחב 4. You remember the halachic definition, which is the height has to be 10 handbreadth and the width has to be 4. So we said, אסור לחטף עליו. We're not allowed to do what? We're not allowed to carry on the shoulders upon it. That's a rabbinic decree. Why? So they said, גזירה משום תל, that we have a concern that they do the same thing on a mount which is 10 and the width is 4 by 4, ברשות הרבים, in a public domain, that is איסור דאורייתא, that is a biblical prohibition to carry to a public domain. So the sages were concerned, if you allow a person to carry on his shoulder on this pillar that stands in a private domain, so people are going to do what? They're going to do it in other places in a public domain, which means that they you can go further with that and violate the Torah law. So not everyone go along with that. For example, the Rashba said on the Tractate Shabbat, page 9, he said that if, for example, you have a small synagogue inside a house, now we are carrying Sefer Torah. So you're carrying Sefer Torah from where? From the ark to the table and vice versa. So in a way, if it's located in the yard, imagine if it's a state of Florida, very hot, so people davening in the yard, okay, and now the yard belongs to many. So can you take the Sefer Torah from the ark and carry it to the table and vice versa? So he said, the only point of the decree, the Rashba said, it's only we basically go by one individual who owned that yard. But for example, if it's one person on the house and another person on the yard, so then you need to have this decree. But if everything belongs to one person, then it's not the issue. Or there are those who said, the Ritva brought a Piskei Ari that he said that it's only applied to open domain, this decree, but not the house that have a roof and walls. Others said that since Halacha not follow Rabbi Meir here, so he's even applied to the some pillar inside the house. But anyway, they said here, Hachana me'gzeira mishum tel birshut harabim. Here also you have a rabbinic decree. Why? Because the idea is that the concern that he's going to transfer an object from public domain to mount in a public domain. So he said, Savur minei. So Abaye Baravin, Rabbi Chanina Baravin understand from this response of Abaye. So that the word of Rabbi Meir apply what? Apply to Afilu b'machteshet, ve'afilu b'gigit. So that he understand that it's applied even in a mortar or even in a vat. So it's a so when they overturn to in a private domain, that they're large enough to constitute a private domain in their own right. So he said, Amar lu Abaye, no, that's not applied to those situations. He said, Hache Amar Mar, Lo Amar Rabbi Meir Ela Amud ve'amat arechaim, Ho'il ve'adam kovea lהם makom. Rabbi Meir not say, but only in the case of pillar or the raised base of a milestone. Why? It's like Amud Birshut Harabim, it's like a pillar in a public domain. Because since a person fixed a place for them, they are comparable to a mount in a public domain, that they are rarely moved. But the sages did not issue a decree in the case of portable objects, because if it's a portable object, they don't go for that. So like in a sense something that they don't have a concern. So they ask, if that's the case, you have a wall that between two courtyards, so this is a permanent, it's a fix. So nevertheless, Rav Yehuda said, כשתמצא לומר לדברי רבי מאיר גגין רשות לעצמם, חצרות רשות לעצמם, קרפיפות רשות לעצמם. So when you analyze this matter, you will find that according to Rabbi Meir, all roofs from a single domain in and of themselves, and a courtyard from a single domain in and of themselves, and all the enclosures from a single domain, it's in and of themselves. So it means that you're allowed to carry one courtyard to another, although it's not permitted to carry from courtyard to a roof. So he said, my love, the sharel tiltuli derech kotel. So you mean to say that you're allowed to carry one toward the divided wall, which means that even you have 10 handbreadth high and width is 4. So the Ritva said, anyway, Rabbi Yehuda hold that Rabbi Meir allowed to carry in that circumstance. So why it doesn't have the same rule as a regular wall in a private domain that you cannot carry it? So it means that the reason of Rabbi Meir in the Mishnah, it's because of this decree of wall in the private domain, And therefore, that's basically what the Ritva hold. Otherwise, how do you explain the whole idea of the prohibition of carrying between the courtyard to the roof of that wall? So Rav Huna responded and he said, Rav Huna אמר רב ששת לא, להכניס ולהוציא דרך פתחים. He said, the whole idea is to bring in and out between the courtyard and another, or from one enclosure to another, via the opening between them. So, which means you cannot carry it from one domain to this wall himself, because he himself is like a wall in the private domain that they put the decree on that. So basically, Meir considered that one may not transfer objects over the wall that separate with two domains, as well as it's considered a domain in and for itself. Now, that's all discussion over Rab Meir. Now we go to the second phase in the Mishnah, which is the sages. The sages said, each and every one of the roofs is a domain by itself. איתמר, רב אמר, אין מטלטלים בו אלא ב400, ושמואל אמר, מותר לטלטל בכולו. So Rav said, alright, you know what we meant? When we talk about carrying, it's within, what? The 4 cubits. So it means that the legal status of a roof is like the courtyard, that it is prohibited to carry from one roof to another, and each roof is fully open to a domain into which carrying is prohibited. So therefore it's also prohibited to carry objects further than 4 cubits of each roof. ושמואל אמר מותר לטלטל בכולו, says you can move object to entire roof. Why? Because these partitions, mechitzot, that divided between their residents down below, we see them, it's like coming up to the roof. It's called, in the halachic definition which we discussed many times, gud asik mechitzta, which means, Rashi said in Peitet in 89, it's like it's halacha leMoshe miSinai. It's halachic that we believe transmitted from Moses and Sinai, and it said that this partition down below, it we hold it in halacha. It's like this partition go up to the roof, which means it doesn't stop. So since we hold in that manner, so it's like divided between different roofs, and it means that it's like a reshut hayachid, a private domain. Now the Gemara elaborates on that, and we're using now again the Orot Hadaf, picture 313. במחיצות הנעקרות דכולי עלמא לא פליגי. Rashi said, אמרינן גודסיק משוך ועלה, which means if you have a clear partition, you see, like you see downtown cities, like in our city you see downtown close to West Street and Spa, you know that buildings, the few buildings in CQ. Okay, so you see there this very small, tiny airspace between them. So the minute you have the partition, we go by Gudasik. You remember what is Gudasik? We just said that is halacha leMoshe miSinai. The minute you have partition here, it's go up to heaven. But it's all apply if it's nikar, if it's clear that there is a space between them. However, keep ligay, when Rav and Shmuel have a problem, במחיצות שאינן ניכרות, when you don't see the partition. So Rashi said שהגגים מחוברים יחד ומכסים המחיצות שבין הדיירים, that you see the building is attached. So even you recognize that that it's a little something between them. You see the roof is a different size, but since the building A and building B are attached to each other, you don't see any partition. You cannot compare this to this. Here they agree, here they have a disputation. Clear? What they said, רב אמר אין מטלטלים בו אלא 400, לא אמר גוד הסיק מחיצתא. Rav said, in this situation, only 4 cubits. Why 4 cubits? Because you don't hold good asik, you don't see it. ושמואל אמר, מותר לטלטל בחולו, דאמר רינן, דאמר good asik. Because he said you're permitted to carry throughout the entire roof. Why? Because he said the principle, extend and raise the partition. So even you don't see it, you still hold that it's divided. Let's face it, as far as the taxes, it is divided. Okay, they charge, even you have the same company that own both buildings, they send them a different bill, taxes to each building. So it makes sense to think either way. Rav said you don't see the separation. Shmuel said, but it is separation. So you see what I'm saying? Now, והחכמים אומרים, so the sages said, כל אחד ואחד רשות לעצמו. So we are now in 89b. Each of them, domain, it's in of itself. בישלמה לשמואל ניחא, אלא לרב קשיא. So we understand that according to Shmuel, because he said each one of them, it's a separate domain. So a separate domain, the Meir explained that you can carry in the entire domain. You go good as seek for the entire heights of the building. אלא לרב קשיא. Rav said that what? We're allowed to carry only the 4 cubits. So, what does that mean in and of itself? אמרי ברב משמי דרב שלא יטלטל 2 אמות בגג זה ו2 אמות בגג זה. So they said in the name of Rav that one may not move an object 2 cubits on this roof and 2 cubits of that roof. So it means that here the Tana rules that even the allowance to carry within 4 cubits is restricted to a single roof. והא אמר רבי אלעזר כי אבינן בבבל. Rabbi Elazar ben Pdat was one of the important Amoraim of Eretz Israel that originally from Babylon, and he learned there from Rav and Shmuel. So he said, when we are there, and we studied Torah with them, and then he went to Eretz Israel and he studied Torah with Rabbi Yochanan. He said, Hava Amrinan, Beirav Dishmei de Rav Amru, in the Beit Midrash of Rav, they said, En metaltelim bo, you cannot carry from one roof to another, Ela be-400, only in the 4 cubits. V'hana de Beit Shmuel Tanu, and the house of Shmuel we study, En lahem ela gagan, you're allowed to carry only on your own roof. Mai en lahem ela gagan, what does that mean? Lav desharu letaltulei bechulei. It doesn't mean that you're allowed to carry for the entire roof. So that's basically opposite that Rav who forbids it. So they have only their own roof. So he said, if you learn from the Mishnah that he should not carry in a way. You go to each roof and you use only 2 cubits in each side of the roof. So he said, here too, this Braita is teaching that one may not carry 2 cubits on this roof and 2 cubits of that roof. But the roof itself, that is a separate domain, you can carry only in the 4 cubits. That's the word of Rav. Omar Rav Yosef, lo shmi'a li hashmatata. I did not learn this halacha, name of Shmuel, that you can carry over the entire roof, that you hold good asik even in the partition that it's not, you don't recognize them. אמר לאביי, את אמרת מהלן, ואנה אמרת מהלן. You remember we said it many times, that Rav Yosef forget in his old age some of the studies, and Abaye refreshed his memories from time to time. So Abaye said to Rav Yosef, you told me one thing in the name of Shmuel, and now you said something else. Gag gadol asamuch lekatan. We said soon we're going to study Mitzvah Shem in page 92. If you have a high, large roof that attached to a small one, you remember that picture I show you? So it means that one is larger than the other in both sides. And he said, Hagadol mutar v'akatan asur. So let me share with you the picture number 315 in Meorot Daf. Look at this building, the bottom. Gag gadol, gag katan. Okay, small roof, large roof. Everyone see it. So Rashi explained, הגדול מותר המחיצות שלמטה שישנן בעודפו לכאן ולכאן ומחיצות ניכרות הן בגוד עסקינו. Beautiful. He says, you see this partition? It's clear. It's go from here to here. And good asik, meaning we see this partition that go up to heaven. You see these arrows? That's the good asik. So therefore, since it's so clear, the difference, the partition, you have no issue with the large roof. What's the issue? The issue is in the small one. Why? Because it's called parutz limlo'o lagadol, that it's open totally to the large one. So therefore, you are limited only to carry in the large one. So he said, Amart lan ala, and you told us. This is the next picture. He said, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, לא שנו, אלא שיש דיורין על זה ודיורין על זה, דהביה לה הדקתן. מחיצה נדרסת, אבל אין דיורין זה על זה על זה, שניהם מותרים. So he said, you taught us the halacha that where there are residents of this roof and residents of this roof, imagine those cities you see around the world, cities who have a big residential buildings, and you have people who really live on the roof, or they, especially in certain seasons, must spend most of the times on the roof. So here they said that since you have one large and one small, you treated one different, and this is the Keneged Chibram, this is the place that they are attached. So you see this black part around, that's considering the mechitza around them, but here Keneged Chiburam, in the place that they really connect to each other in the roof itself, is no mechitza. So he said, you told me that only it apply when you have on the roof the residents of this roof and that roof, that you have as the extended virtual partition of this small roof is considered a trample partition, which means so you can use it, it's mechitza nidreset. So trample partition you can use. But he said, and the entire length of a small roof is considered a breach into a large one. But he said, but if there is no residence of this roof and none of the one carrying on both roofs is permitted. Why? Because we presume that Shmuel reasoning is that in this case the wall of the houses below extend upward and from partition between the roofs, so extend and raise the partition gudasik mechitzta. So you respond to him and says, Amar le, Rav Yosef said to Abaye, Ana aache amar lo. This is what I said to you. לא שנו לה שיש מחיצה על זה ומחיצה על זה. The only, what I said is when you have a partition in both. בגדול משתרי בגיפופי, that the large roof, it's you're allowed to use it for the gipufim, which means the mechitzot for both, from the large one to the small one, and it's not like parutz, it's not like open an area. But he said, however, v'katan nifratz bimlo'o, so because it's totally no mechitza between them, it's parutz bimlo'o, it's fully open. אבל אין מחיצה לא על זה ולא על זה, שניהם אסורים. But he said, when there's no partition by neither one of them, zero partition, so both of them are prohibited. So yeah, even the large one. So it means, you may say, why you don't hold gudasik in the mechitzot under the large one, like we said earlier. So he said, you need to see some type of a mechitza, that's something that it show, recognize that it's separate. So they said, v'had yorin amartlan. You just told us about residents, people who live there. So he said, I amar lechud yorin. He said, if I spoke to you about the residents, hache amru, this is what I meant. לא שנו לה שיש מחיצה הראויה לדירה. על זה ומחיצה ראויה לדירה, על זה דגדול משתרה בגפופי. I told you all of that carry is prohibited in a small roof, apply when? Only if the case where there are actual partition that render the area fit for residents in all sides of this roof. So he said, דגדול משתרה בגופופי וקטן נפרץ במלואו. So in that sense, and the carrying on large roof is permitted by means of the remnants of the partition on either side of the opening. And carrying a small roof is prohibited because it's fully breached into the large one. says אבל יש מחיצה ראויה לדירה על גדול וראויה לדירה קטן, אפילו קטן נשאר לגבי הגדול. מה תמה? כיוון דלא עבוד מחיצה סליקו נפשי ומהכה. They said that because they basically do not think anymore from there, because it's not a permanent mechitza. כי עד אמר רב נחמן, that's the way because they basically remove themselves from here and transfer it to the right domain to resident or large roof. So I explain in my book, ביוריה כלומר ברש"י על הש"ס, I explain, there is Rashi here that he said, לא שנו דקטן עשו בין לדיורי קטן לדיורי גדול לשש מחיצה ולדירה, כלומר מחיצה קבועה וקיימה. So the big question is, if the resident, the neighbor, he is mochel al shitcho, he give away his right. So even you thought at the beginning that the person really wants to live there, here is the big question. The moment that a person put their mechitza, put their petition, what do you have in his intent? Is he intend to live there, and therefore he is like having the right over the roof, or since it's a temporary petition, it doesn't mean much. So if you look and you see the mechitza kvu'ah, the permanent petition, for us is a signal that he's planning to live there. I give you an example. You see it a lot in Israel. See small city like Yerushalayim, may it will be extended soon. There are, Kenai Nahor, Baruch Hashem, many families that need extension. They live a large families and these are small buildings, sometimes small apartments. So one of the things that they try to do is they try to build on roofs, and they are limited how much they can do that for many reasons. It's not just the idea of constructions and the foundation, the structure of the building, but it's a physical issue of size, etc. So one of the things that happens sometimes in a building, like imagine you get in an apartment in the building, and now all the roof contain only a heating units, dudei shemesh, it's water heaters and things like that on top of the roof. Sooner or later, the residents that live on the top floor, or even the whole or some of the residents of the building, approach you, and it happens all the times. And they said they want to either purchase from you the right over the roof, or to have you join with them building, for example, a special domain for sukkah on the roof, or a special pool on the roof. It happens all the times. So here we ask a question back to our subject. When it's come to building a partition that looks like a permanent by one residence, and you have two roofs attached to the other, how you treated his domain. And that's what bothered Rashi, and that's the reason why I think he used the word klomar here. But anyway, back to our subject. So he said, Kehad Amar Rav Nachman, Asa sulam kavua legagor, hutar bechol agagim kulam. So Rav Nachman said, the minute that he built a permanent ladder to his roof, so while the owner of the neighboring roof did not do so, so it's permitted for him to carry on all the roofs. Why? Because the failure of the other owners to erect ladder indicate that they are relinquished the right to their roof, to the one who will fix the permanent ladder. It's very common in the neighbors' relationships. Imagine you have a good relationship with your neighbors and you all have apartment in the building, and all of a sudden the neighbor at the top of you, let's say kitchen or dining room, start extending his balcony. Okay? Now they notice, you didn't sue them, you didn't come after them, so they interpreted your acquiescence as agreement. Right? Later, I'm talking to myself, or you guys agree, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, you come back from vacation and you notice that your kitchen is dark, right? And the guy said, you saw me building it, you never comment anything. I sent you a few notice that I applied for the city permit and you never objected it, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyway, so they said, Amar Abaye, בנה עלייה על גבי ביתו ועשה לפניה 4, הותר בכל הגגים כולם. Picture, illustration 317. He says, you see, this is all these buildings. Now here, look what he did, this guy. He built this part on the roof, but he make this opening, small entrance, small petach, that it's open just in one area. So look again, you have several roofs. They are attached to each other. What this guy does, he made this opening, he erected before the entrance a small partition, 4 cubits high, and opened it to other roofs. So now he said it's permitted for him to carry on all the roofs. Why? Because by doing this, he basically indicating that he has a plan to utilize the other roof, because look where he put his entrance. While the failure of other owners to do so indicates that they are considered use their roof to him. Okay? Amar Rava, we now bring another halacha. Now look at the picture on the bottom, 318. אמר רבא, פעמים שדקה לאיסור, sometimes he has an entrance open, go the other way around, for prohibited. The same way as we said that this opening create heter, create a permission to carry, here it creates a special indication that is forbidden. Hechedame, Davida lehad tarbitza deveitei, that he erect to the garden of his house. So it means that the sides that facing the other roofs were sealed. So since he did that, what happened here? The Amar, the person said, Lintu et tarbitza udeavida, that I build the upper story to protect the garden, which means not to access the roofs. See, it's a beautiful garden this guy has, and he has this opening to protect this. So the minutes that happen is go the other way around. How he go the other way around? Because he said, I did this to do what? I want to watch over my beautiful garden that I work so hard to build. Okay? So by doing so and closing all the other side, what it basically indicate to us? That he has no interest to use any other roofs. His only intent is to watch over his garden. So therefore he is not now forbidden to carry for the other roofs. Okay? So basically by making this opening is the other way around. He create a prohibition for himself from carrying. So that's the point of view of Rashi. The Gaon Yaakov said the key point is not because of this opening, it's because the other part are closing. So he said it's because he made it clear that he is not interested in the others. The Chazon Ish hold that because he made this opening, he is like making two statements. Chazon Ish says something very sophisticated. He said in Orach Chaim Kuf Dalet. He said, number one, he indicate I'm not interested in anything else in these roofs, not to carry, not to have any business coming out here. Number two, I'm indicating that all my mind is going here. So therefore, we follow his mindset by the way he make this the other way around to carry a prohibition of tiltul, of carrying. The first halacha is Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 372. We talk about roofs, courtyard and enclosures. So if it's owned by several different people who each establish his own Eruv but did not establish an Eruv together, is nonetheless permitted to carry from one to another any utensils that were located in one of them when Shabbat began. However, those utensils that were inside the house when Shabbat commands may only be carried into a courtyard whose inhabitants establish an Eruv together. That's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. We discuss also a situation that you have a change of status, meaning when you have a gudasik mechitzta, which means you have a eruv that build on the very bottom of the building, like in the yard, and we ask if that roof go up to the roof or not. We basically hold that the minute you establish a roof chatzerot, that partition is go up to heaven without any stop. But the question that we discuss a lot is when you have those buildings totally attached to each other. In a very general term, we said that as long as you make a ruvei chatzerot on the very bottom, you can go by gudasik mechitzta for the up top. But as I said earlier, no everyone go along with this idea. Some say that if some inhabitants establish an eruv on the top of the roof, establish an entity of living at the top of the roof, then they need to have a separate some type of partition, some type of eruv, especially if one roof of building attached to the next one.
See